We've been giving a variation of the same homily through the Advent season. So if you've heard part of this, I apologize, but I think it does fit with the theme that we have for Advent, but also the readings that we've been hearing each week leading up to our celebration of the Lord's birth. It kind of centers around this, and I don't know if you call it a movement or a way of life, that some members of the younger generation follow, and they're pretty particular about it. I'm talking about millennials, and they're talking mid-20s to early 30s. And it goes by that acronym called FIRE, which stands for Financially Independent, Retire Early. Now, retire early is something we all would like to do, and we may kind of look to that, and I'm not talking about with this group that they're thinking about retiring at 62 when they can first start collecting Social Security. I mean that they are looking to retire, exit the workforce before they are 50 years old. That's quite a goal that they have. And in order to do that, they have to, in a sense, kind of see the long game and be very particular about how they live their life and the lifestyle that they live in this time right here and right now. So being financially independent, and in a sense, saving almost half of your take-home pay and investing it for the future, to the point where financial planners say that they need at least a minimum of $1 million in investments in order to live off the interests of that in the years to come if they want to retire at such a young age. So that is quite a lifestyle change. There's no $4 lattes at Starbucks every day. There's probably no extra vacations. There probably is not a boat. There probably is not a lot of extras. If you live in a larger city like New York or Chicago, you probably don't own a car. You don't have the expenses with the automobile and the maintenance and the parking and all that. You would take public transportation. You would walk a lot of places and such. But all of it is with that goal in mind of seeing the future and being able to retire at a pretty young age and then have the freedom to do what you want. So to see in the future, to have a goal, but also in a sense to kind of put it into practice right now is a gift. Lots of us make goals, but a lot of us, we get to that point up here, it's like, oh yeah, I was going to start exercising on January 1st this year, wasn't I? Boy, that didn't go very well, did it? Or, I'm going to go on a diet and such, but boy, that chocolate donut looks really good. Maybe I'll start tomorrow, right? But if you're going to be an adherent to this notion of FIRE, you got to start now, and you got to stick with it, because that's a pretty radical goal if you're going to get to it. I say all that because Advent really, in a sense, is a season for us to be looking forward, to be looking to the future. We started the Advent season 4 weeks ago. Many of us may have made some sort of resolution or promise or whatever to make this season different, that by the time Christmas rolls around, that we would, in a sense, kind of have felt that the tone, the mode, something about the season was very different than it has been in years past. Our wreath here now has 3 candles that are lit, so we are very close to our celebration of Christmas. But how has it been different for us? Has it been different for us? There's lots of things that take our time and our attention this time of the year. There's the shopping and the baking and the decorating and all those things. And please, I don't want to discount those things. Growing up, those were some of the greatest memories that I still have today of all the different things that my parents did for us as children. So those are all very important. But does it come to a point where it consumes us that all of a sudden that wreath is lit completely and Christmas is here and you're like, whoa, what happened? Well, nothing happened. It was just another time of the year. That's all it was. If you don't want it to be like that, in a sense, you got to kind of set out. You got to have a goal. You have to have something you work towards. So now we're in the last week. And so maybe you can say to yourself, how is this 1 week at least going to be different? What are we going to do differently that in a sense is going to kind of set the tone, or just in a sense kind of to say to ourselves, we are going to be different leading up to this. People came to John the Baptist. They thought he was the Christ, or they thought that he knew the Christ, could point the way. And they said, what ought we to do? It's a good question to ask yourself right now, this last week of Advent. What ought we to do? You know, parents, you can say, kids, what ought we to do? We ought to drive to school in the morning and just turn off the radio. Silence, quiet time for a whole week. Just in a sense say, this is different than any other time. How about daily liturgy? Come to Mass during the week. This week, beginning on Monday, our readings are spectacular. They come from the first 2 chapters of Matthew and Luke's Gospel that specifically talk about the announcement and the coming of the birth of Christ. The Annunciation stories of John the Baptist and of Jesus and of Zechariah and of Joseph and all those different things. They are beautiful readings every day leading up to Christmas. That would really, in a sense, kind of set the mode, set the tone. How about confession? Pope Francis, in one of the first interviews that he ever gave, somebody said, "Who are you?" And Pope Francis says, "I am a sinner," just like all of us. Maybe it's been years since we've been to confession. This is the opportunity to do so. You know, that's set the tone, be something different. What ought we to do? John the Baptist says, share with those who are hungry. Don't extort from those who you have power and authority over, whatever it may be. How is this going to be different? Those millennials who practice fire look to the future and say, my life now, until I reach that goal, is going to be very different. In a sense, we can do the same thing. For this week leading up to Christmas, we are going to make it very different. That really, in a sense, kind of sets the tone and the mood for what is coming, the great birth of Jesus Christ.